So I recently made a trip out to a place called Warp Drive Toys, and it was pretty cool. This is what it was like. So I've known about this place for a while, this place called Warp Drive Toys. It's one of those things that even though I knew about it, I didn't necessarily make many trips out there. Once or twice every now and then, if you've listened to the podcast for a while, you've heard me mention it. I probably went out there maybe 4 times total since the place was open. Well, it moved and it expanded. It got a new store and they're building some really cool stuff in there. And I finally got a chance to go check out the new store. With everything that's been going on, I absolutely needed a trip. I absolutely needed somewhere to put my headspace and just kind of fall back into kind of being a child and enjoying myself and being part of the fandoms that I actually love and care about. And this was the best way to do it for me, was this store. Walking in, it seems pretty basic, like any other store like this that you could think of that you would go to, and that's fine. It has a pretty decent wide range of collectibles, but the main thing that this store focuses on is Star Wars merchandise and Star Trek merchandise, and it's always growing. The guy that owns it is a film major, so he knows an awful lot about movies, and he collects different things like autographs on the wall and shit like that, and he's constantly collecting movie props and things of that nature, and he's expanding his shop, and he's always going out to thrifts and things like that to pick up different things, and he orders stuff normally that come in. His store is ever expanding, legitimately ever expanding. He's constantly picking things up, and as a collector himself, he understands how important it is that this stuff be interesting. That he knows that there's a market for just about everything, but he himself was very real. When I went in there and I talked to him about some of this stuff, one of the things that he kept bringing up was he would bring up the best variants of certain characters and the ones that had the best facial features and the ones that had the best body sculpts and the ones that had issues and problems. And he himself actually makes platforms, character stands for characters that have lost stands, or different sizes of characters that just don't often get stands. They're just sold and that's all they are. Things like the Star Wars Black Series that came out. That kind of stuff doesn't really have proper stands that come with them, but he makes those stands there and he sells them there because he knows that sometimes you put them on the shelf, and if you have a system like mine, these figures can fall all over the place if somebody tries to clean something or move something or, I don't know, walk. The whole store is pretty cool. He's building displays. Like, he's actually going to be making a giant mural on the wall of a forest so that he has these Yodas that he has. He has, of course, the quote, Baby Yoda and Yoda, and he has them sitting with a snake, and he makes these little log things and everything like that, and he's going to paint the back to be a mural, and it's going to be pretty cool when it's all done. He's purposely creating tiling that matches Star Wars stuff on one side of his store that's going to go around his counter and everything, while he's going to create another kind of paneling that's going to go to represent some of the Star Trek stuff. He actually had one of the original intercoms that was sitting when you walk right into his shop. He had an intercom thing that you could push, and that was pretty cool. It's just a gimmicky little thing, but it was pretty cool. It was there at the door. He collects all kinds of Marvel merchandise and off-the-wall merchandise that you just wouldn't really think about, like cute Freddy Kruegers and crap like that. Overall, this guy's store was legitimately cool, and I had a good time there. And it was really cool when I got to talking to him about movies and things like that. Not just projects that he actually worked on himself and had a knowledge of, but different things that he was able to explain from people that he had met and stories that he had heard. And also some of the things that he preferred in his movies and his takes on different things, while he was very open to hear my takes on things. And we just kind of hung out. I was there for about 2.5 hours just talking movies, merchandise, good times, bad times, actors, all kinds of stuff was I able to get into it with this guy. And he wasn't just humoring me, he was legitimately interested to the point where he told me to bring my camera in and film the store. That was really cool. But I know what some of you people are thinking. What'd you get? Let's check out what I got. This is what I got. I got all of this, and it didn't cost me as much as you would think it would have cost me. All of this stuff that's going to go up on the shelf today cost me a little under 60 bucks. Let's talk about what all this stuff is. Let me set it down here, this giant tower of stuff. All right, first off, I got a Kit Fisto. I thought this was really cool. I don't see him ever in terms of merchandise. I really don't. And since I'm already getting into things like the Black Series Star Wars stuff, and this is the first time I've ever bought into this stuff, and it's going to have to find a spot up there on the shelf, you know that this is one of the cooler standout Jedis of his era, and I'm really excited to put this guy on my shelf. And just for good measure, just to say that we've covered it, even though I did not get these from the shop, let's also grab this Leia, because she's going up on the shelf. She's a solid piece. She's my favorite Leia. Yes, Hoth Leia is my favorite Leia design in the entire series. I thought this was not only my favorite design, I like her outfit in this quite a bit. I actually tend to believe that this is my favorite Leia. I believe that this is when she really showcased very outstanding hero traits that weren't just shock value hero traits. The fact that she grabbed the gun and she was a tough woman in the first movie. There's nothing wrong with that. That's cool, and it puts her on the same playing level as the boys, but I really felt like she came into her own here on this one when there wasn't that much action, when she actually had to embrace the personality of the character. For her, there wasn't a whole lot of running and gunning until basically the end of the film. And that's really cool because that's when she gets a chance to shine. But throughout the entire course of the movie where she's not running and gunning, we got some real time with Leia, really got to know her, and really got to understand the hero character that they were building, which was a solid character. And this is why she is always my favorite Leia. Now, alongside her, I got the first movie Luke Skywalker in his flight suit, which I like this. I legitimately like this. I think the flight suits for this movie are pretty cool. They're still kind of in the future. They're not really what we wear necessarily, but at the same time, it's believable because it's still a flight suit. It still grounds part of the science fiction in reality. And I would tell you that where Star Trek is more science fiction, Star Wars is more science fantasy, and that's fine. It still falls into the science fiction categories, and this is what these kinds of things right here help to ground it in that reality. This is a flight suit. It makes a lot of sense for somebody that's going to be flying an X-Wing. This is a solid Luke, and a big deal for me, as you always know, his face is nice. This is a really good Luke face. It is a solid, legitimately solid Luke face, and that's a big deal to me because two of the biggest characters in the world that I think have awful faces in toys are for some reason Luke Skywalker and Captain Kirk. I don't know why. I don't know what's going on. I don't understand how you could perfectly sculpt Leonard Nimoy's face 1,000 times, but you can't figure out Shatner's facial construct. I don't know what that's about, but it's a real thing. I 100% tell you it's a real thing. So let's get back to what I picked up from Warp Drive Toys, shall we? First off, going up on the shelf, well, I guess this is second because we already talked about how Kit Fisto's going up there, and that's pretty cool. Next, we got Red Shirt. That's right, we got Redcoat Chekhov, which this is pretty cool. I'm really happy about this. I liked the Redcoats. This is from the Next Generation toys. It's from Playmates, the ones that I really truly like, and I always feel like their faces are solid. And even though I'll tell you that the stuff they come with is usually kind of sad, like that little blue thing over there, like that's one of their weapons. It's very much... The weapons that came with these guys are not solid. However, by this point, they were starting to try a little harder. The gun is a lot more detailed, and the communicator that comes with Chekhov in this Redcoat is pretty solid. I love the Redcoats. I think these were some of the best uniforms that we have ever seen. I like the original uniforms. I like the Redcoat uniforms. I like the flight uniforms in Voyager, and I actually prefer the DS9 uniform design over what we got with the Next Generation's pajamas. It's just different enough to still be the same thing from the Next Generation, but no longer look like it's nappy time. Next, one of my all-time favorite characters in all of Star Trek history, Dax. I'm so happy I found Dax. Dax is going to be great to put up on the shelf. I absolutely love Dax, and I'm purposely going to move the shelf around so that Worf can stand next to Dax, because of course we're going to do that. That makes sense. Dax, it's hard to explain why she's my favorite character, but part of it does come down to her race. And I love the idea of immortality with a natural explanation that makes sense to me. Is that worm, that symbiote thing, lives thousands of years and just keeps transferring perfect memories of one person to the next. This means that while that person does die and move on, if you believe in that kind of thing, the worm thing is still alive, and that explains their immortality. It explains a very interesting class or race of people, species of people in Star Trek that kind of blows my mind, because we think about Vulcans and we saw that they have that thing where they can transfer Katras from one body to another, and then they can save all the essence of a person. That was interesting, legitimately interesting. But this I actually find more interesting because it's something that is widely practiced and kind of crazy when I really think about it. Especially in terms of learning. Like, it's weird that characters like Dax, who very much will reveal later on in the series that she grew up in Kirk's time, one of her people was very much alive in Kirk's time. Why is she not a captain? Like, almost immediately. Like, sure, Dax herself, Jadzia, has a lot of learning to do. But she also carries the experience of multiple lifetimes, and you imagine that that would propel these kinds of people through the ranks of Starfleet very quickly, because it's not a maturing process. You can almost take somebody that's 20 years old, and with all the memories and all the life experience that they have gained and all the things that they've done, where they may have been a science officer in one life. Can you imagine a joined trill that goes for 4 generations of Starfleet? Can you imagine that? And don't tell me it's not a rare thing or that it can't be done, because look, she very much owned memorabilia that she missed from the original 60s show, and she had relations with McCoy, which means that she was very much alive and doing in that time. Then Jadzia is alive and very much a Starfleet officer in her time, and then she dies and we move on to another Dax, which is also in Starfleet. That's at least guaranteed, verified 2 lives that have lived fully in Starfleet. Like, it's crazy to me that they are not literally propelled through the ranks. But I guess you do have to work on the merits of each lifetime is its own lifetime, and while they have that experience, that you would, as a captain, be stupid if you weren't pulling from their life experience, you may not want to put them in command, because while the worm thing may be ready, the symbiote, they might not be ready, because they are not the same people that those people were, which is shown to us very blatantly, where she has a lot of their memories, but she's not them. But at the same time, she dives right into kind of being them when she receives nicknames like Old Man, and very much is still, in many ways, Kirazan Dax. She is an infinitely interesting character that I felt come to a inappropriate end. But at the same time, through proper drama, I'm happy that they kill a Star Trek character and that character stays dead. I don't like cop-outs when it comes to the biggest dramatic turn that you could possibly make. And I love that Jadzia dies and we moved on and she was not the same person. And that person had to deal with the fact that she wasn't the same person, because when she was joined, she very much started to have experiences that led her backwards, where she kind of tried to interact with that old life, like going back to Worf, and Worf was like, "You are not Jadzia." And he's right, she's not. Infinitely interesting character. I didn't mean to go off on a huge Star Trek tangent, but then why the hell else are we here except to talk fandom? Let's talk about another piece of the collection that's going up, shall we? Here's one for you. This is Thomas Riker. This is the clone that was created in one of the very best Next Generation episodes that there was. This is the one specifically that appears and joins the Maquis in Deep Space Nine, but this character was created through a transporter accident where during an away mission, Riker had a small window to get himself and some other people out of a situation. When he beamed up, something happened with the signal, and the signal repeated and fell back to the planet. They enhanced the signal, and with some nice Star Trek trickery, they created a Riker through the lost signal. That Riker survived the mission, became a commander, had all kinds of merits and appreciation for what he'd done, and the other Riker that bounced off the clouds and went back down materialized and became stranded for like 10 years without any kind of contact. It was like a long time. I'm going to be honest, I can't remember exactly how long he was stuck there, but he was stuck there for a long time. And during the time that he was there, it was Nervala 4. I wanted to look at the back of this and see for sure, so I wasn't giving improper information, which I was 100% sure I was right, but it doesn't seem to stay. 8 years. 8 years. There. He was stuck down there for 8 years. This Riker grew up alone on the planet's surface with nobody for 8 years, and then was discovered by the Next Generation crew later on when they went back to retrieve data, because the storm had finally let up and they only had a small window to go down there and do this. And they find him. And holy crap, is that a good episode to see how life experiences really are a major factor in how we become the people that we become. And I don't doubt that for a second. I honestly believe that I would be a different person today had Star Trek not been a part of my life. And that's not a joke. I honestly, truly believe that Star Trek have major influence in the person that I am today. That is magnificent, because he went on to live his own life. It's incredibly interesting. Next, Redcoat Kirk. This is cool. As you know, I like to get a hold of Captain Kirk's whenever I can. Right now, the only one I really have is Movie Kirk, right back here. That's the original, not the original series necessarily. That's the first movie Kirk, and that costume probably looked the best on him, and that's because from what I understand, he kind of complained to get that. But regardless, we're not talking about him necessarily. It's just a cool thing. I liked Redcoat Kirk. I liked him very, very much. I believe that the era of those movies, those 6 films, and I don't care if you might think that one is a bad movie or yada yada, all 6 of the original crew films are loaded from start to finish with character moments and building of those character interactions that make us give a shit about that crew. In fact, my wife was not introduced to these characters through the show. She watched the movies. She didn't watch the first movie. She watched part 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then 7, which was Star Trek Generations. She watched those movies first, found an extreme interest in these characters, then started watching the original series, because these characters were no longer just cardboard cutouts. By the time the movies came around, they made a conscious decision to grow these characters up. They dealt with age, they dealt with the fact that they'd made certain decisions in the past, they dealt with the fact that they'd patted themselves on their back for their ingenuity, and they had to grow up and step over certain parts of their life that had created a prejudice that didn't exist there. Kirk was not racist against Klingons, or xenophobic is the actual term if I'm not mistaken. He wasn't. He became that way through the death of his son, and as he became an old man, that bittered with him to the point where he was reaching retirement and had now no wife, few friends, and no son. And it was at the ending point. Ship and crew due to stand down in the next month or so. And when it happens, he would have nobody. And that is legitimately terrifying for anyone to face. And it would make him bitter. I like the development of Kirk through those movies and into Star Trek VI, where he has to open his eyes and realize that he has become that person. And it very much goes against the person that he's been his entire life. That is fantastic storytelling. And that is why Redcoat Kirk deserves a place on this wall back here. Whew! Let's cut for a second so I can get a drink, yeah? Yeah? I'm going to do that. That was good. That was decent. All right, back to this. Let's go over the last 3 people that I picked up. 2 of them are Star Trek. I found a Trelane. Trelane! That is infinitely cool to me. It is absolutely shocking. It is amazing that I found Trelane. And, get this, he was free. The next 2 guys that I'm going to show you, now keep in mind, this is what I meant about this. This shop was not gutting people for their prices. These are all $5. Every single one of these guys that I picked up were $5. The other dude, Kit Fisto, was $20. Every Star Trek figure was $5. You buy 3 Star Trek figures, you get a free Star Trek figure. So, yeah. No, it was buy 2, get 1. It was buy 2, get 1, because I got 6 figures in all. So I got 4, and those were the 4 that I wanted, and then he was like, well, go pick 2 more, man. And I was like, what? And he says, I know. He says, I know, I get it. The sign is really small. And he pointed it out to me. There was like this little sign that was like, hey, guys. And it was like another sign that was way above you where you would just never looked up there. And it definitely said you buy 2 of them, you get 1. Well, so I go back to the wall and I start really digging through these figures, man. And I find frickin' Trelane. Trelane! If you don't know, that is an infinitely interesting episode in the original series that makes an awful lot of parallels to Q. In fact, there's an awful lot of evidence that would lead us to speculate that Trelane either comes from the same continuum as the Q, or something just barely under them. Because he was quite possibly just as powerful as Q seems to be. And it is true that in that episode, they destroy the machine, which he comes with the machine, he comes with the mirror, that supposedly was giving him his powers. But then at the end of the episode, his parents show up, these 2 omnipotent frickin' beings, and they pretty much just take him away, and it seems like they have super crazy powers without a machine, so it's possible that the machine was also part of a gag where he actually just has these powers. Like, he's infinitely interesting, and I know that they expanded and used this character in comic books. You know about my views on expanded material. Those are side stories. They are not verified until they appear on screen. Sorry, that's the way I see it. Trelane. Last character is from the original series, and he's frackin' awesome, and you should love him because he's frickin' Harry Mudd. Harry Mudd? This is just a geek moment. That's all it was. I went over to the shelf, and this is exactly what I was telling people. The Playmates figures are amazing because if it existed in the show, it probably has a figure. It probably has a figure. And I go over and I'm digging through stuff, and I almost bought the 2 Klingon sisters. But then all of a sudden, I see some original Klingons and some original Star Trek toys, and I get a little excited, like maybe I can find the original series crew that I've been looking for. I couldn't. They weren't there. But Harry Mudd was. This was infinitely cool. Infinitely cool. I could not believe that I found Harry Mudd. And it looks like a lot of the characters that come from this specific series, these ones that were released, would be really solid ones to have, like Dr. McCoy in dress uniform, Captain James T. Kirk in the environmental suit, that big dumb gray suit, the captain, the Gorn captain, and that Mugato, which is that weird giant ape creature with the horn. Like, very cool. Very cool that I got Harry Mudd. He's just a neat gimmick. It's just so crazy that I'm going to be able to put Harry Mudd on the shelf. And he comes from 2 wonderful episodes of Star Trek, in all honesty. Which, yeah. Like, straight up, yeah. And now he's utilized all over again because he actually appears in Star Trek Discovery. So, like, long live Harry Mudd. Okay, so let's go. Fall down. Okay, last one. This is the figure that I walked by that I wasn't expecting to pick up. And I wasn't expecting to get one of these. I barely even knew they existed. Now that I know they exist, there's a couple others that I'm going to have to go get. This is really cool. This is from the Classified series of G.I. Joe. They're remaking the original toy line in new modern day toys that get all the bells and whistles of modern day toy production. They move better. They're bigger. They have better detail. They're really super awesome. They're ultra freaking posable. Like, this guy is gonna be so freaking cool on the shelf, and the only thing that could have made him better is if they would have colored the weapons. Because his sword is just black and everything. But then, a question comes to mind. Is that a mistake? I haven't looked at the other characters yet. I saw Snake Eyes. I had this Snake Eyes. In fact, I may very well still have him in the boxes as we go through the boxes, which we're a long way off from opening the boxes and packing the shelves, okay? We've still got to get over what's been added to the shelves pre-video that we need to go over and talk about. But look, I had the original Snake Eyes. I had 2 or 3 variants after that Snake Eyes. I had one of the bigger figure Snake Eyes. And now I have this Snake Eyes. This is one of my all-time favorite G.I. Joes ever, and I'm legitimately excited to open him up and just look him over. I want to see, like, I could see that there's designs on the belts. I could see that there's, like, actual pants fabric. This excites me. These were major toys when I was growing up. Joes were a huge deal. They really were in terms of my life. It was something that all me and my friends played. And we didn't like stick to the G.I. Joe format. We just bought Joes that looked cool, made our own stories. And that's where part of my storytelling life comes in. G.I. Joes are practically responsible for half of the reason that I enjoy telling stories today, because we didn't know half these characters. We just made shit up. Ninja guy? Cool. Make your story. What's your story? Tell me what your background is. That's your character. What's his name? Cool. Let's go. We did that all the time with Joes. We just made up stories and did our own things. We knew basics, like we knew there was Cobra, we knew there was Destro, we knew there was Duke, we knew there was Snake Eyes, we knew there was Storm Shadow. But half the time we would just create our own backstories and play. We called them Joes. We played Joes. But it was never the same storyline that you would have seen on a Saturday morning cartoon. Our characters died, they developed, they pushed forward. After a while, they had relationships, and we took other Joes, like the Exo Squad characters, because those characters were smaller than Joes. We would use them as teenagers telling stories in the future of the characters that we'd already set up, where their kids were basically serving with them in this end-of-the-world type of scenario thing that we'd created. We did alien invasions and all kinds of crap with those things. I told so many stories off G.I. Joes that it is literally a foundation of toys that never leaves my heartstrings. I absolutely love G.I. Joe toys for their designs, their innovations, and their freedom, allowing me to tell stories that I wanted to tell, because every single Joe just was oozing with personality that made me say, I got a story for that guy. I know what he is. So cool. Looking at this guy and knowing that these things exist now, there are people I want. When Storm Shadow shows up, I'm going to want him. Okay? So far, on the back of this box, if these are the characters that are out, this is what I want right now. Duke, yes. Scarlet, hell yes. Baroness, yes. Cobra, yes. That's 4 of these people. Truth of the matter is that if I find pretty much any of these guys, I'm probably gonna get them. But those are the ones, first and foremost, that if I found them, I want them. This is so cool. This was something I did not realize was a thing. And coming across it in that shop by accident excited me and brought memories back to me to no end. This was legitimately exciting, amazing, worthwhile, made my day, and really something so simple and so stupid helped to really pull my mind out of a bad place. There is merit to your nostalgia past just your childhood. Sometimes, in fandom, we just like these things. And the idea of owning your favorite Jedi and just having him on your shelf, or having a very adult version of the toy that you grew up playing with, maybe it doesn't fit everybody else's ideas. And that's fine. Because it shouldn't. People are different. I'm different. You're different. But these little bitty fandom moments are what keeps me doing what I do. It's what keeps me making these videos, sharing these stories, and being legitimately interested in collectibles and games and figures and comics and things. But I'm not married to them either. This is going to be really cool to put on my shelf, and it's probably not going anywhere. But there are plenty of Joes that I have parted with because they just don't serve a purpose. Like I said, monitor your own collection and make your own decisions. If it's going on your shelf, if it's taking up your space, if it means something in your fandom room, then it means something to you. And it doesn't have to mean something to anybody else, and don't get lost in the ridiculousness of, you need to buy these because if you don't buy them right now, you're never going to be able to get them. We live in an internet age. Be patient. Just about anything you want is at your fingertips. Don't let your collection control you. Remember, your collection represents something about you. Every item on your shelf should tell a story about you. And as you can see, everything going up on the shelf today says something about my fandom. It means something to me. It belongs on the shelf. That's all for this collection update. I'm going to get out of here. I have spoken. Take what you will from it.